Having property near the Oregon coast doesn't come without a cost. These little trees you see waving in the wind are some I planted. That is what's left after some of the rest of them have blown down. We have lots of nice fresh air coming right in off the ocean, and it has taken a toll on my little trees that I planted, hoping to have enough to have some really nice logs someday. And besides, I've always enjoyed little trees, and I've got some here growing up. Those ocean breezes whip and bend these trees, but that's what they're made for. They're made so they'll bend. About 4 miles to the west, we don't see the big trees, but we see the big breakers rolling in as the wind blows and churns that ocean up into a fury as it roars and slides up on the beach. When the ocean gets too rough, it seems to create a bunch of foam, and I've seen this foam waist deep on the beach. If ever you get bored, all you have to do is go down to the ocean or simply just sit and watch the trees whip in the windstorms. Today, I need a few minutes off my remodeling project to get a little much needed exercise and a little bit of that good ocean air in my lungs. So we're going to drive about 4 or 5 miles from our place and go to the new natural area that the state has purchased in not too many years ago. When we used to go here years ago, there were some ponies on this island. It's called Whaling Island, and we'd see them most of the time. And then when the state got it, I don't know what they did with the ponies, but they no longer seem to be here. The person that owned this land, it was always in private ownership. There's a county park right next to it where you can spend the night and camp, but this new state park, it's called Claymire State Park, and so I'd never been here. I just look over when it was in private ownership, and there were some no trespassing signs up, so I never did go on it. And so now we're going to take a look at it. This is the county park right here. They're right next to each other. The county has their picnic tables all set up here on high ground. Sometimes the tide comes up pretty high here when it's a real high tide with a storm pushed sea coming in. The county park and overnight camp is just across the road from the state natural area, and the state has built a brand new restroom here where there used to be none and created a small parking lot. This is a great spot, and it's mainly just for hiking, I guess, and people that want to go out and see birds. As I first started this hike, I saw a couple bald eagles circling over, and I'm told there's an eagle's nest here, although I didn't see it this time, but the wind was blowing. It was kind of nasty, and I didn't take time to look. But someplace here there's a bald eagle nest that you can see right from this area. This new park is very popular for those people that like to watch birds. Before we start on our hike, we're going to take a drive around the county park and just look at it. I never did spend the night here because our property's really close by, but a bunch of my wife's relatives used to like to come here and spend the night, and they used to fish right off the campground here and catch a few fish, not a whole lot. And then at low tide, sometimes we'd wade out in Sand Lake, and when you'd step on a flounder, you'd just leave your foot there and then reach down with your hand and grab him by the tail. And so we caught some really big flounder by hand out there, as well as crabs. But the crabs we caught were usually always soft shelled and too small, so we just returned them to the waters of Sand Lake. There's even a camper or two here on this island in the county park. Sand Lake is a very small bay at low tide, but at high tide, the water floods all over this tidal flats out here and makes it look pretty big, but actually it's pretty small. And as near as I know, the only salmon that come in here are the chum salmon, which run up a little creek that goes fairly close to our property. On the real high tides, the water comes clear up in the grass, but it doesn't seem like it's hurting that grass a whole lot here, and the birds really love it. Although this time of year, with the storms and everything, the birds don't seem to be here much. And here's a map of the new natural area and the trails that you take. So let's take the trail out and see what we can see. And I'll be darned, I did catch that bald eagle on camera as he circled over. Never having been here before, I didn't know what to expect. And I thought that probably they'd have had, since it was in private ownership up till just recent times, I thought that probably there would be no brush and it would be cleared off. But no, it's not. They kept it in a natural state all this time. There are a few places near the beach where old people have owned it, and then when they get too old where they don't want it anymore or they die, then it is put on the market and sold. And so the state buys a lot of this. Otherwise, it might go for development, and golf courses or something like that might go into this kind of spot. So only a few could enjoy it and pay the price it costs. But the way it is now, it's in state ownership and it's free to go here. I don't think you even need a parking permit to go on this spot. And then you look out over this bay that's called Sand Lake. There's a bunch of marsh areas, and then there's sort of a hill with even a valley in it back on this is Whaling Island, and the tide occasionally gets up this high. So we walk along a trail that just has humongous huckleberry brush here. If you like this kind of huckleberries, there'd be plenty of them here. And there looks like a tree took the liberty to fall right over the trail. And then we move on out the trail with a few rhododendron bushes and some salal, but it seems like the main thing are the huckleberry bushes here. As we move on out the trail ahead of us, and this isn't a real fancy trail. That's my kind of trail. I enjoy this kind of trails. And then we get up here where we can look out over the ocean. The ocean is just ahead of us, over beyond the Sand Lake, where you can look out and see the big breakers coming in on the ocean right out in front of us. And it looks like they're plenty big today. We're somewhere midway between Cape Lookout and Cape Kawanda here on Sand Lake, where it spills its salty contents into the sea. Then, when we get out to the end, the trail turns and comes back kind of hilly here, and it comes through some uh, the shore pine or lodgepole. They're the same thing, only they grow in different places. There are a few. If you hike right along, this trail takes only a little bit over an hour. It's just a slight bit over a mile for the complete trip all the way around the island. By now, I'm just a little over halfway around, and to my amazement, it hasn't started raining yet today, although it looks like there's storm clouds on the horizon. But I've been lucky and not had any rain to get my camera gear wet. And I follow the trail along. It varies from one side of the island a little bit, and there's not all the huckleberry bushes and salai along here, just a little bit of it as it winds through the lodge pole, and then back in to some huckleberry and salal, and they're high as your head. If you like those kind of huckleberries, you could sure pick a lot of them here, and they are kind of good. They're smaller than some of the huckleberries. In Oregon, we have 27 different varieties of huckleberries, so there's plenty to pick from, although here there's only about two varieties of them, these and then the red ones. Here's the foundation where an old double wide mobile home once sat when it was in private ownership, and so they put a little fence around the edge of it. I don't know what the fence is for. Maybe that was something when the double wide sat here. So apparently this is where they lived or used it for a vacation. I never knew the people that lived here, although they were fairly close to where I live, but I never had the occasion to meet them. Then the trail goes upward a little, and I can look over and see the county park at this stage, and we're almost back completely around the loop, which is, I think it was 1.2 miles or something like that, all the way around the island, and the huckleberry bushes are here again. And then in front of me is the state restroom and the parking lot, and there my car is. March didn't join me on this hike. She just waited in the car because she's got a problem with one of her feet. And so until that gets healed up, she may not join me on many of these hikes. There's the county picnic. That's an overnight camp area. It even has a fire pit and a picnic table, and it's ocean or bay front. I guess you'd call Sand Lake a small bay. I still have a lot of remodeling work to do on the house that we're fixing up over there. So I guess I better bid that old seagull farewell and get back over there and get started on it. I'm sure none of it's getting done with me down here hiking around Sand Lake. We go back across the bridge, and here must be the old troll that maybe he just checks you out to see that you're doing okay as you go across the bridge and then back on to the coast highway. We're going to head right on up and get started on our remodeling job. We're in the process of putting ceramic tile in the bathroom, and hopefully it's dried enough by the time when we get back we can continue on with it. Since we're nearby Pacific City, on the way home, Marge wanted to go in to Chester's Market and buy us some fresh oysters to eat. Since that's one of my favorite food, I must have been pretty good today to deserve some oysters. So she got some oysters and a few other things, and then we're back to the house we're working on. And the ocean continues to move in and out every day, whether we work or not. We can hear that old ocean roaring from our house, and sometimes it just gets to be too much for me when I hear it roaring like that, and I just have to go down and look at it and watch the seagulls as they move around right in the edge of the surf, catching little things that the surf has uncovered for them to eat.